Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of You Are the Guide. I hope everybody's having a beautiful, beautiful week. Another Monday, the beginning of another new week. And today we're actually going to be talking about relationships, but in a there's so many little things about relationships that have come up when questions that I've received online about astrology and different things that I'm just gonna be ranting here about specific little things. One of them is how to know that you are compatible with somebody based on astrology. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Another thing is about how much not having the ability to name what we feel gets in the way of relationships and can really separate us from our partner, regardless if we stay in a relationship for a long term. And this came from a conversation that my partner and I were having when we were watching Love is Blind. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And then lastly, there is this one question, and I heard this on a TikTok that since I heard it, it stayed with me. That if you're ever doubtful if you should be in a relationship with somebody or not, you want to ask yourself this one question, and it should give you complete clarity of if you are with the right person or if you're not. So I'm going to share that with you at the end. So first things first, let's talk about astrology because right now I am in my astrology era. So I love talking about it. I've said this every time, but there's not a day that goes by that I do not bring up astrology with my daughter or my partner or my friends. Like if I catch up with my friends, I'm like, "How are you?" It all goes normal, and then at the end I'm like, "I just want to know what's going on with you astrologically." And I start like letting them know. But anyways, when it comes to compatibility, just know based on astrology, I do want to say, even though I am interested in astrology, I would not just base a relationship or just be with somebody based on what the astrology says. Every single relationship, in my perspective, serves a purpose. And many times people just come into your life or you come into people's lives just so each one of you has an opportunity to grow in a specific area and you get to know yourself better through another person. So I don't actually necessarily believe that there's one person for you, but especially if you have been in different relationships, you have felt the different level, not even level, the different types of connections you are able to have with people. Sometimes you have a very, very physical connection with somebody. Other times it's all emotional, like you feel that you don't have to express anything for them to get you. There's some relationships that are so passionate, like so powerful from the moment you start. It doesn't mean it's healthy for you. It doesn't mean it's going to be the best partner for you. It's just strong. And there's some astrological compatibility that tells us that. And then there's also some where you have a very strong intellectual, mental type of relationship where you can communicate like no other. Maybe you don't want to have that much sex with them, but or whatever the case is, but there's another level of connection with them. So it's very interesting, like in so many ways. And then there's also like types of compatibility that lets you know how sometimes something is just it works well without much conflict, that you may just stay there for a long time. But remember, staying in a relationship for a long time, it does not mean that it's better, that it's sometimes it's just easy to be in it. Sometimes it helps because you're more like best friends. And some people really, really want that. So anyways, I want to say that beforehand because I'm not saying I don't necessarily subscribe to the mentality of twin flames or soulmates. I feel we're here to grow, evolve, get to know ourselves, and then we meet people. They become our teachers. We're the student. We're the teacher. They're the student, and we grow. And at some point, the majority of a relationship has an expiration date, and you let it go. For some people, that expiration date comes because you stay with them forever and one of them passes away before the other one. There are some relationships that will last a long time. So that's amazing. And some people really, really want that. But let's start with the most simple type of compatibility that many people talk about when it comes to relationships based on astrology. So in astrology, your sun has a lot to do with just in general almost like your personality, like the way that you're perceived. That is the part of you. The sun represents like the light. So that's the part of you that stands out a lot when you're simply like your personality in some ways. And your moon represents your inner world. Many people may not ever see you as your moon sign, but when you were born, wherever the moon was, that is your moon sign. That is your inner world. That is the way that you process emotions. That is the way that you know yourself more. You may not know yourself as your sun sign. You may recognize yourself more as your moon sign. Now, when you meet somebody that it can be to different levels, right? Like where one person, their sun is the other person's moon. These two people meet and they just feel that they understand each other. Like you meet and you feel like, I can be myself. This person just gets me. So one person's sun, I'm going to give an example. Let's say somebody has a Taurus sun, and when they meet this person they're dating or their new partner or whatever the case, that person's moon is Taurus. So when they meet, they feel like they understand each other. Especially the moon person feels understood by the sun person. Now, when that happens double, meaning, let's say one person has a Taurus sun and a Virgo moon, and they start dating somebody that has a Virgo sun and a Taurus moon, these two people really, really, really feel like they click. Like it's this level of very deep understanding for each other. Once again, why does that matter? Or why do so people feel that those connections are so special? Is because it's a level of understanding that does not require a lot of work. You can have no astrological compatibility with someone, but then get together and do the work that is required to be in a healthy relationship and still have an amazing relationship. But here we're talking about, and so many people don't know their astrology, but they think back of a partner that they're like, oh my God, sometimes I wonder if they were the love of my life and it didn't work out or whatever. And most likely what just everything that was happening, if you're not with them, it's because it was not meant to be. In my perspective, like it just was not meant to be. And that's why it ended. Like that person served their purpose in your life. But if you still feel like, oh, I think they like it was so intense or so passionate or whatever, not necessarily intense and passionate. If you feel like they really understood me, they really got me, most likely they had a moon sun compatibility. Now, when people have a passionate, strong sexual relationship, usually it has to do with compatibilities in either Venus or Mars. Mars, wherever you have your Mars, it's the planet of passion, action, sexuality. That tells you a lot about how somebody is in bed if you look at their Mars sign. So if you have fires, you even just like elements, like if you have a fire Mars and you meet somebody that has a fire Mars, you may have a very strong sexual connection. If you meet somebody with an Earth Mars and they're more down to earth when it comes to their sexuality, but you're pure fire, you may find that sometimes it feels hard like to be compatible in bed. And there's many layers of compatibility in that. It's not the only one, but it could have something to do with the way that you connect sexually. Now, Venus is the planet of relationships. So that is a big factor in compatibility. When you and your partner have a Venus sign that is compatible to us, it can be simply because of the element. Both of you have Venus in air or earth, of fire, water. That is one layer of it. Now, if you have your Venus right next to somebody's moon, which is their inner world, they are going to feel very connected with you. But there's so many, so I don't want to confuse you, but I want to say one, that when you meet somebody that you have this very passionate, strong, deep, almost like this, it feels like not negative, but like a dark, deep emotion. It commonly has to do with Pluto. So if Pluto is, let's say, conjunct or right on top of your partner's Venus, if you and your partner have Pluto somehow next to each other, in some way, it can be with Pluto with Pluto, Pluto with Venus, Pluto with your sun, this person, and it's not necessarily always good. It feels like they have this pull, this power, this intensity towards you. And sometimes you want to let it go, and it feels hard to let go of. And because we don't know that much about astrology normally, we just think like, what's going on? Like, why can I let go of this person? Why do I always go back? Why does it feel toxic? Because sometimes it can be a little toxic when you have Pluto around there. It's very, very interesting. I find that obsessing about a compatibility, to force it, to make it work, to be scared of it, no, we should never use any modality out there to feed fear or to doubt our own autonomy to make decisions. If you don't feel ever that you're fully free, like you can be autonomous to make a decision for yourself outside of any modality, any religion, any belief, astrology, then maybe you shouldn't be jumping too deep into those things. I made another video where I talked about that, because if you struggle a lot with either mental health issues and you're not receiving the right support or guidance, all of these modalities can lead you down into a rabbit hole where you're going to start doubting yourself, and you're going to start believing blindly in other things. Okay, so I want to note that first. I'm saying all of this as a tool to help you, even if you're already in a relationship. I think sometimes that's even the best thing. If you are with somebody right now, something brought you guys together. And if you're getting interested in astrology and you want to see like, ooh, what was our compatibility? Now you can look at it and use it as a tool to help you, because you can really, really get an idea of, oh, it makes sense that we're like the way that we are. I do want to share, sometimes you meet people that you have that strong Pluto connection. And the reason why the relationship works is because you and that person challenge each other to really grow and go deep. Like, you don't want things that are at the superficial. Like, it becomes a really deep type of relationship. And it can really work even if nothing else on the chart shows compatible. Okay. So yeah, so that those were the kind of things I wanted to talk about. So just to recap again, making it basic, because I went all in. It's, I would say the first thing you want to look at, it's at your sun and your moon and see where those things are. Do you guys have similarities? Do you have even either the same sign, either in the sun and the moon, or even, like I said, the same element? Both of you have a fire sun and a fire moon, or a water sun and a water moon. That also means you will be compatible, at least to speak the same language and understand each other. The other thing is look at your Mars, which is your sexual compatibility. Are they in the same element? Are they close? Is their Mars or your Mars close to an important planet of yours? And then your Venus, which has to do with the planet of relationships. And I find that to be interesting. And then lastly, your Pluto. Where is your Pluto on their chart? Remember, here, there's so many apps out there. I usually use astro.com, and it lets you put like the two people's information, and you can see how one chart falls on top of the other. And it can just be fun. It can help you understand each other. It can give you sometimes like, oh my God, that makes so much sense of maybe why there was this pool. And there's many things. Sometimes you dated someone, you were ready to let them go. You were like, everything that we needed to learn is done. Like, I don't feel I want to be part of your life anymore as a partner, maybe as a friend. But then time passes a little bit, and then you feel that, oh, I do want this person as a partner. And it shows you sometimes as well based on astrology and those compatibility things that I mentioned. So yes, so that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about astrology wise when it comes to relationships. It was a little bit general. If you have questions, specific questions, put them in the comments. I remember, I'm just sharing this from what I've learned until now. I'm not claiming to be the know-it-all about astrology, but just wanted to share that. And I find it so interesting. Like, sometimes when I'm with my friends and they're like, oh, look at mine, our chart, like couples, just finding like those things that I'm like, oh my God, like your Mars is like right there next to each other, or Mars and Venus compatibility. Or I'm like, it makes sense why you guys are so compatible, or it makes sense why you guys have so many like explosive type of energy because of whatever you're seeing, So it's so interesting, which kind of leads me to the second thing that I wanted to share with you today. And it has to do with being able to name our emotions what they are, to have good communication in relationships. This all came out because my partner and I were watching Love is Blind. We ended up falling into it because of TikTok, and then I put it on, and then she like jumped on the wagon, and then we ended up watching it all. And it's true because I recently watched the last episode, and they said it's almost like therapy watching it. And I think in a way it was, because we kept pausing it and having this deep conversations about things that we were observing, and it was like, oh my god, this and that. There was, if you've seen it, I think you're going to know what I'm talking about, and if you haven't seen it, you'll understand the concept. But Chelsea and Jimmy, I think that's their name, they were having they showed a lot of their little arguments, and we could see how it would start like a normal conversation and everybody's just sharing their point of view. And then at some point, either one or the other, usually her, she would shut down and just, and you could observe, and later she was able to call it for what it was, but it was that she was feeling insecure. But because probably she had not yet identified it an insecurity, or because it's hard when we're in it. Like I've been 100% her. Like I've experienced exactly like probably like verbatim certain things that she went through. Um, we cannot identify what we're feeling, and we could observe being on the outside the moment it went from a conversation to an argument. Woo. From a conversation to an argument. And it was because the moment that we cannot name what we feel, and we don't bring it out to the light and look at it and face it and call it its name, we start projecting that emotion, the nameless, because we haven't named it, emotion onto the other person, usually through pushing buttons, blaming them. You weren't here for me. I was here all day. You didn't give me a kiss all day. Like, we're not naming it. I'm feeling so insecure right now, and I need more attention or validation or whatever. So instead of saying that, we go, you've been ignoring me all day. Like you didn't even give me a kiss all day. Like, what's going on? And we're making it about them. You have a problem. You haven't given me a kiss, right? Instead of naming things for what they are. And that's where the conversation started. I said, imagine that we all had the ability or the emotional um, maturity, but I don't even want to call it maturity, because sometimes when we say something like, oh, you're not emotionally mature, it tends to bring us down, like if we're not working on it, or like something's wrong with us. So I'm going to just say, call it like emotional evolution. Like we haven't evolved as beings, as humans, to a place where the majority of us can call an emotion for what it is. Like if we could do that, if we could evolve to that for what it is, how different life would be. Relationships would be even more amazing. But even the arguments we see, like we go on TikTok, people are fighting at a McDonald's for like whatever, like, you took too long to bring my food. Even instead of saying that, we would say, I'm so overwhelmed with life, I'm so frustrated with what's going on with my husband, I just lost a child and I don't know how to cope. And that is what would come out of our mouth. Imagine how different the world would be. Because when we name an emotion for what it is, when we call it what it is, we automatically open a door for compassion. There's a lot of people that when you say, I'm feeling insecure and I don't know how to respond, and the first thing I want to do is blame you. If you say that instead of blaming your partner, why didn't you kiss me today? Your partner automatically does not feel attacked. We bring our guards down and we go, oh, they're going through something. This is not about me. And it doesn't feel like an attack. And that led us through a whole conversation of, it would be so amazing. But if we were all like that, and I think many of us are working towards that, but because we're in this level where for many generations, nobody has taught us how to understand emotion. The opposite, we've been taught to suppress it. We've been taught to not call it for what it is. I was saying, I believe in another video, I don't even remember, but I was mentioning how sometimes in those movies, I don't know if you've ever seen the movies, I think it was The Conjuring, or I don't even remember, but where when there was a demon, you had to call it its name like 3 times or whatever. I don't even remember. And then it was like part of the spell that would make it like go away or something. I don't know, like it would take it back to where it came from. But you had to call it by its name. It reminded me, when we have a strong emotion, and we call it by its name, it loses power. The emotion that wants to, like, it wants to come out, it can be sadness, it can be anger, suddenly goes like there's nothing to hide when you just call an emotion for what it is. I'm feeling insecure right now. I'm feeling scared. I'm angry, and my anger is making me think that I need to blame you. Like, if we would just all do that. But I know it's like many of us are working on it. Me myself, I have no 100% mastery of this. I'm working on it. I'm really, really good at it a lot of times, and sometimes I'm not. So I don't think it's something that black or white, but it just made me think of like a fantasy world of how different would life be if we could just understand people's emotions instead of living in this fake reality that works because we're all polite and it makes us exist and coexist together. But sometimes it's not real. And it's not easy to call our emotions for what they are because I believe we don't always know what we're feeling. I don't know if this has ever happened to you where somebody asks you, like, how are you feeling? Like, what's going on? And you know something's going on and you know you're feeling sensations and strong things inside, but your answer is, I don't know. And I say, I saw that so many times with my clients, and it was one of the most honest, probably, sessions that we've ever had when people would say, I don't know what I'm feeling. And you can see in their face that it was not denial. It's, I don't understand what's happening inside of me. I don't understand what's going on. And the thing is that when we name the emotion, we become the ones responsible for it. The moment I say, I am feeling insecure, you cannot do anything for my insecurity. You can be supportive, you can hear me out, you can ask, do you need anything? On the outside, you can maybe support me with something you can give me, presence, but you cannot regulate at the core my nervous system on your own. Sometimes people's presence, somebody listening to you or somebody saying kind words will help regulating your system. And I'm all for that. I don't believe that we're all individually only able to regulate ourselves. We need society, connection, people. But the majority of the responsibility falls on the source of where the emotion is coming from. So if the emotion is coming from me, the majority, I would say 80% of the responsibility to manage it and regulate it comes from me. And 20% comes from the one on the outside. And that's a rule, or not a rule, but like a guideline that my partner and I have. Like with my issues, my trust issues, my things that I have, we've sat down and talked about it. Like I'm 80% responsible for actively working through my trauma that is mine, that I will continue to have to work on with that current partner or not. And they can be there to support me in that 20%. And for that 20% to be valuable, I need to know what I need from them. I cannot assume that they're just going to know. I cannot assume that they're going to be like, oh, let me just do this for them. So that's why that communication has to continue. And then when it comes to their experiences, their possible trauma, whatever they're going on, they are 80% responsible to work on that. And I can only be there that 20% to support the other. But I think that is the conclusion we kind of arrived to. We are yet afraid of the responsibility that comes from being able to, or thinking that we have to work through our stuff alone. And that is why the healing journey, like I think I can make a whole other video about this, but that the word healing in itself, and I used to be all for the healing journey and just do this and that. And sometimes it makes it sound like there's one solution and you'll heal. There's no, I've changed my perspective into there's no healing that is needed when what you're going through is that you're being a human being. So it's nothing needs to be healed. It's just you're on a journey that has so many layers, and some of your experiences, your information in your nervous system, your past feels heavy and painful, and you want to have the um, like mechanisms or the tools that help you manage it. But I don't think there's any end to anything. But it changes. I also think that no amount of suffering stays the same. Like I can only speak for myself, or I've seen it in my clients. When somebody goes through something very deep, very painful, very dark, with time, they tend to overcome the intensity, but then there's other layers of it that stays that they still have to work on. So it doesn't magically disappear. It changes. Everything is so layered, like, and everything that you do to start working on it, it either makes it better, or it teaches you what doesn't work, or it teaches you what does. And then you have to continue to do it consistently, which is what I have learned. Um, but anyways, now I'm sidetracking. So the point of this part that I wanted to share with you is, I just wanted to say that, like, I wanted to say, like, imagine for all of us a world where we could name and call our emotions for what they are. Let's call it out, that let's name it. And let's allow that to be the point that opens the communication, the conversation with our partners, with our children, with our parents, because we all think, many people now, millennials, Gen Z, we're the first generation that's healing. Our parents didn't know how to heal. They know a lot. They have a whole other strengths and wisdom. And if our parents are alive, we can heal and work with them. Sometimes, and not all the cases. I know sometimes they don't want to, and they're not able to, and they choose not to. But if our parents are available, we can, because it helps. So yes, so that was that second thing I wanted to share with you. I know, like I said, this is more a ranty video. I wish somebody was here with me to have the conversation, and we're getting to that soon. But yes, I wanted to put that out there. And I don't know where you stand with this. Maybe you already have a lot of mastery with calling your emotions what they are, understanding them, or maybe not. I would love to know what has worked for you. Like, what kind of tools out there help you name your emotions and understand your emotions, because it's different for all of us. Like, there's not a one thing that I've found, only this one thing helps. It's so different for everybody. But one thing I know 100% for sure is that in order for any healing modality, um, I guess we're going to call it that, because for to understand the concept, for any kind of modality, let's remove the healing modality to work, our basic needs have to be either met or at least okay. We have to feel that we are not in full on survival mode, because then any emotional work that we do is just superficial. So that is why I tell people, and I tell my clients, if you're struggling with even things like being able to support yourself with financial stuff, with anything that's threatening your life, like if you're still living with somebody that's possibly violent and they're threatening your life, like sitting down to do a meditation on self-love is not gonna, it's not what you need right now. Like, first you need to feel to a certain level, because we all have fears, especially right now with our, the way that finances are right now. And everybody has this little fear about, like, everything's so expensive. Like, am I okay? Do I have this debt or whatever? And that affects how safe we feel or not, even if it's our fault, right? Like, some of those decisions were our decisions, but it affects our level of security. So sometimes when you're already full of, I don't feel safe, like I'm in survival mode, no amount of healing modality or sitting down for this or that is going to help. Can you do some things to regulate your nervous system? Yes. In those moments, what helps the most is somatic healing, like breathing exercises, moving your body, literal exercise, going for a walk. For some people, when you're in survival, it's even more healing to go and deal with the issue, meaning, I'm struggling financially. I think I need to get a second job, or I need to first start paying my debt. And as I started paying my debt and I felt more regulated, I was more capable to deal with other emotions that are going on. Or even when it has to do with our body, right? Sometimes even before we go see the therapist, we need to make sure we change our diet. We stop consuming so much caffeine or caffeine. I help people quit smoking. That's part of what I do with my coaching. So I have nicotine in my mind all the time. Anyway, nicotine as well, which is one of the most addictive substances out there. Caffeine is so normal. We're all use it, and it affects us so much, especially if we're in survival mode. And then we go into the toxic cycle of needing it to just function. And of course, anything else beyond that, alcohol and any other drugs, like all of that, working on that first can be so important. But anyways, that is that second thing that I wanted to talk to. And lastly, what I did want to share with you is this question. I heard this on TikTok and it stayed with me, and my partner and I have talked about it many times. We've asked that to people, like when we've been with friends and they're struggling, like in their relationship, we've asked them. And maybe you've heard this before, but it is a question. If you're ever doubtful, if you are with the right partner, if you're ever doubtful with how you feel about your partner, you want to ask yourself the question. And I want you to imagine that I'm asking you, if someone would tell you, oh my God, you're just like your partner, how would it make you feel? Is your first reaction like, no, I'm not? Like, ew, no. That tells you do not admire your partner. And we know that more than love, what helps relationship last in a long time, or at least even if it doesn't last in a long time, because I don't subscribe to anything, like I don't know, everybody's life is different, so I'm not going to assume that it's better because they were together for 15 years. I don't know how it was, but to have a good relationship while you're in it, regardless of how much how long it lasted, is, did you admire your partner? Do you admire your partner? If somebody would say you're just like them, or they compared you to them, like you're just like your partner, how would you feel? If your reaction is like, wow, that was a compliment. Yeah. Like, wow, what a compliment. It means you admire your partner and you think they are amazing in some way or another. We all are amazing at some things and not so much others. But if your reaction is like, okay, like, what do you mean? Or no, it means that in some way you don't admire them. And it doesn't mean like run and break up with them, but you want to look at why. Sometimes we don't admire people, not because they're necessarily bad people, but because there's something about how they are that is not compatible with us, or something about how they are that we are triggered because we ourselves are also working on that. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, I feel called out. Like I feel I'm being called out and I don't want to name my emotion what it is. So I'm reactive to it. But I think it's a really good question. So I invite you to take that question, maybe ask yourself. You can sit and or even share with friends. I think it's very, very valuable. And always remembering is not to break up or to be like, I'm with the wrong partner, but to help you go within and explore, like, what is your judgment with them? Why do you hold the judgment? Or what are the things that you admire about them that maybe you don't think that you have within yourself? And you're there because you want to learn those things about them. And I will tell you, at the beginning there is, thank you for like, you're just like your partner, oh thank you, or you're just like your partner, no I'm not. Like that's just the first reaction. But later, if you sit with it, you're going to notice that there are things that you do admire about them, hopefully at least some, because you're with them. And there are things that you don't, and it's okay as long as you are choosing to recognize why you're with them and focus on the good. Some of us have that mentality of always focusing on what's bad. We're like fixers. I find that that happens a lot with us Virgos. Like we always focus on the problem, we always focus on what's wrong, and we completely negate. Not all Virgos, okay? I always say that because people come for you. Not all Virgos, but a lot of us, we negate the good and focus on the problem because we love to fix people and we love to fix problems. And it's okay to have both, but why not choose to focus on what's good? So sometimes this exercise takes you back to yourself to look at what you can do to make your relationship the best that it is based on what parts of your partner you choose to focus on. So, yes, that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. It's my little ranty relationship video. These are the things that we've been talking about here with my partner at home. These are the conversations that have been going on, but it's a little bit of a relationship thing. And I want to say, when it comes to astrology, you can always look at your chart with other people, like your parents' chart, your kids' charts. that compatibility is also super valuable and important. But with that said, if you have any questions, anything you want to share about this episode, leave it in the comments. Thank you so much for everybody that has been so supportive, just listening to the episodes. Something I haven't talked too much recently about is we are now, by we, I mean I, me, myself, and I have been now more getting in the flow of filming the episodes, getting them out there. But many of you know, I started this right now as a long term project. You're going to be seeing episodes from me every Monday for a long time to come. But this era that you're seeing right now is me learning. I'm like a little kid in diapers, like learning all the technology things, learning to just sit here and be myself and talk to you. But just know that I'm aware that there's sometimes the structure of the topics is not necessarily aligned or in a specific theme, and I'm aware of that, and I'm right now okay with that. And for the few of you that listen, sometimes it's, we had a video that had like a few hundred views. We had others that have like 90 or 50. That's okay with me right now. I hope at least those of you that are listening, you're enjoying it, you find a little bit of value, or at least just know that I will always try to have conversations that at least are real, and hopefully that at the end of it, I always want to leave it with a positive message, because I am learning now that a lot of the power that we hold as individuals comes from those little things that we do every day. So if I am choosing to sit here and create this, my choice is to always leave it at the end of the day with a positive spin or a positive light, because I believe the world needs more of that. I believe two things can exist at once. I'm not in denial of everything that goes on in the world, but I'm also realizing sometimes we want to hear more of the good. At least I feel that way. But with that said, that's all I had to share with you today. I hope all of you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I will see you soon.